Hello. This is a video about capturing close-ups and macros with a little camera like this. Now, I said in a previous video that you can capture close-ups with one of these, but you can't capture macros. And by macro, I'm thinking of an image of a scene which is less than an inch across. Well, it turns out I was wrong. You can. And the pictures that you're now looking at were all captured with this camera. This particular camera is a Panasonic TZ60, but the same technique should work with other cameras, depending on whether you can get bits of the right size or not. We'll come on to that. It's a camera with a small sensor and a lot of zoom. This one's got 30 times zoom. The exact amount of zoom isn't too important. All the pictures used close-up lenses. Some were shot in natural light. Some used flash. Some were captured in the daytime. Some were captured at night. Some of the subjects are a bit smaller than you might think, particularly the daffodils and the snails. All the images have been processed using my normal workflow, which is to use a batch process in DxO Optics 10, mainly for noise reduction, and then individual tweaking in Lightroom. Now, you can't tell anything about the image quality of these by looking at it on a tiny little video. So what I've done is to put a link in the notes under the video to a Flickr album which contains 125 of these test images, including the ones you're now looking at. And they're there at 1300 pixels high because that's the size that I normally work to. So, we've got this little camera and we've got some close-up lenses. Now, normally what you do with the close-up lens is you either screw it on to the filter thread of the camera, or if it's a Raynox lens, they come with a clip-on adapter and you can clip that onto the filter thread. But this camera, like all of its type, doesn't have a filter thread. It's just got this big long barrel that comes out. Rather conveniently, this is an adapter tube for a Panasonic FZ200 camera. And this is pretty much the right size, so the lens can fully extend without coming to the end, and it also fits over rather nicely as well. It does block off the use of this ring, but the camera is perfectly usable without it. This adapter actually comes with a 55mm thread. I've got a step ring which is 55 to 52mm because all of my close-up lenses have step rings on them to bring them to 52mm, so I can move the close-up lenses around between cameras with no problem. So I want to get this onto here. Now, someone who's clever with metalwork could probably do it better and neater. What I've done is to stick some Velcro on the camera. I've managed to cover up one of the stereo microphones, but you can't have everything. And I'm going to put this on here. So I'm going to take a piece of Velcro on here and put it on. Touch the lens as well, never mind. We'll have one over here. There we go. And one over here. And one on the bottom. Now this is surprisingly secure. I've used this for these two quite lengthy sessions, and it's fine. It stays there. So I can now either screw something on, or I can clip something on. I don't use these clip-on adapters. I break them too easily, but you can use those as well. So if I put on this is my least powerful close-up lens. It's a Canon 500D, and if the technology is working, I'll just go and check to see whether it is or not. Yep, I think that might go into focus. It might not. Oh, that's because that's out of focus probably. Let me just check. Yep. So I can now, if I go to full wide angle, you'll see that there is vignetting there, quite serious vignetting. However, I've only got to zoom out to 2 times zoom and it's gone. And I've got then all the way from 2 times to 30 times, which is a lot of, a big ratio of magnification. So at the moment I can see almost the whole ruler. If I zoom right in and check whether I can get focus or not, I can't there. Getting close to it. Not sure there's enough light in the room for this. Oh, there we go. And that's about 22 millimeters across. So I'm now looking at the scene 22 millimeters across from a distance of about 375 millimeters, which is about 15 inches. If I was using an APS-C digital SLR, I'd be using a magnification of 1 to 1. And I tend to think in terms of APS-C when I'm talking about the magnifications. So that's with the Canon 500D, the least powerful of my close-up lenses. And here's another one. This is a Raynox 150, possibly the lens that I use most, certainly the one I use most for spiders and flies and wasps and that sort of thing. It's more powerful, so we have to get closer. Whoops, there we go. And if we go to full wide angle, I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, an awful lot of vignetting, and I have to get to 4 times zoom to get rid of it. This is a lot better, incidentally, than with the FZ200 when I use these close-up lenses on this tube on the FZ200. So I get a lot more range of magnification with this. So if I zoom right in, I now get an image width of, I haven't got the distance quite right here, there we go. I get an image width at the closest of about 11 millimeters across. Incidentally, in terms of the sizes, you'll see, hopefully, down in the right hand corner of the screen, these are actual real sizes of the sizes that I'm talking about here. So this biggest one is 22 millimeters across, and whatever 3/4 of 22 millimeters is down that way. The one we're looking at now, the Raynox 150, the smallest scene size I can get to is this one here, which is 11 millimeters across. And I get that from about 7 inches. And in APS-C terms, that's a magnification of 2 to 1. And I can then go on through I won't bother putting them on, but if I put a Raynox 250 on, which looks exactly the same as this, I get down to a scene width of 6.5 millimeters. Here, the third one up, from a working distance of about 4 inches, and that's a magnification in APS-C terms of 3.5 to 1. If I stack a Raynox 150 and 250 together, which is a combination that I use, again I can just put them on in the same way, I get down to a scene width of about 4.5 millimeters from a distance of about 2 inches. And in APS-C terms, that's a magnification of 5 to 1. And finally, with my Raynox MSN 202, I get a minimum scene width of about 2.2 millimeters from a distance of about an inch. And in APS-C terms, that is a magnification of about 10 to 1. Now, if I put my finger here, this might give you some idea. I mean, you can look at a ruler and see what 2 millimeters is like for yourself, but I found it quite instructive to actually make these little squares. It is very difficult to point the camera exactly at what you want and keep it steady, even if you're using a tripod. This is pretty difficult stuff. The other thing is that you get, with this setup, you get, there we go, that's 2 millimeters. You get quite a lot of chromatic aberration, green and red lines around the edge, high contrast edges here. In fact, I can see some here. You probably won't be able to see it on the video, but it's there. Lightroom and presumably other software will get rid of this when you're at 4 millimeters or less. As the magnification goes up from there, this chromatic aberration gets sticky. I can't get rid of it with Lightroom, but this is with a very high contrast subject. In fact, it's a bit academic, this amount of magnification on any of my systems. I simply don't use this much magnification. It's too difficult, and the depth of field is absolutely tiny. There are people who I greatly respect who do work at these magnifications, but it's not for me, and certainly not with this setup. Now, as the magnification increases, you increasingly want to use flash to put some light on the scene. And this camera has a flash, but it's a little window there. And the problem is that it shoots the light out there and it hits the side, and of course it doesn't illuminate over there. So what I've done is to put a flash. Now this is rather a big flash unit because it's the only one that I've got that will work in the way that I'm about to describe. So I've got a very small bracket with a flash shoe on it, and at this end I've got a rubber washer to help stop the camera rotate when I fix the camera to this. And there's a homemade diffuser. Everyone's got their own opinion as to what a good diffuser, how to build a good diffuser. If anyone's interested in this particular one to see what's happening under the surface and so on, I'm putting a link to a set of photos, another album at Flickr, which shows this rig, and it shows this opened up so you can see what's inside and how I constructed it. Now the problem is, I'm running out of battery on this, but it doesn't matter at this point. The idea here is that the flash is going to go at the front here, and it's going to be, I don't know if you can see this, it's going to be picked up by the sensor here on this flash, which is then going to fire its own flash gun. The problem with this setup, and that works, you put that like that, and the light goes from here into the sensor there, and off goes the flash. Trouble is that, and again I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I've still got the problem, the light is still coming out here from this flash, and it's illuminating the right hand side of the scene, but not the left hand side, so you get this horrible uneven lighting. So what I've done is another kludge. This is the top of a takeaway carton. It's not actually, I've bought it, but it's what's used for the top of the takeaway carton. It's shiny on one side and white on the other. So I'm going to put the shiny side, and it's got a little bit cut out so I can get it around the lens. I'm going to put it in like this, and it attaches with yet more Velcro. Now what happens is that the light is blocked from going forwards, and in fact it gets reflected back. And what that means is sometimes you find that the flash, this or the diffuser, gets in the way of branches, or if there's a wall you're working at, it may get in the way. I can now turn this back so it's actually behind, it's beyond the line of sight. I've turned it too far now. There we go. It's beyond the line of sight, it's behind the camera, but the flash will still fire because the shiny side, the shiny side of this, tighten that up a bit, that's better. The shiny side of this is reflecting the light from the camera's flash into the sensor, so you can get this out of the way. More sensible to use it a bit more forward like that. And that's usable. It's quite light. It would be better with a lighter flash, but this is what I use to take the photos that you've seen. The other thing is, if you're working at night, you can't see what's going on, so you need a light to help you see what's going on. And I actually wear one on my hat. I have a light that comes forward like that, so I can see what's going on. But you also need a light to help you focus, and this one can either go for low magnification, so it can go like that and point forward at the subject. If it's at high magnification, then it's pointing too far away, so I can turn it around and the light comes out of the side rather than the end. And this is available from Homebase, this particular thing. And it's now providing enough light actually to focus there. And so you can use this with pretty small subjects. What's good about this setup? Well, you get a big range of magnification, you get autofocus, and that's all good. What's not so good about it compared to the other equipment I use is that the focus isn't as fast or reliable as on my FZ200. I'd be getting more false positives in the sense it says it's in focus when it's in not, so I have to be more careful about watching what's going on to make sure it really is in focus. And the other thing is, of course, it's got a fixed LCD. This does have a viewfinder, so I can in fact use it with the viewfinder. I prefer to use an LCD though, and what I can't do is the odd angled shots where, for example, the camera's on the ground and it's pointing upwards. With an articulated screen I can see what's going on, and I can't do that here. I can't see, but you've got quite a range of usable angles that you can use it with, and I used it for all the ones that you can see in the album at Flickr. The other thing is you can use it this way up. Because the flash is mounted on the right in this particular case, normally, when you turn it up, the light's actually coming from the top. Now, most people, when they use a bracket, they put the bracket on the left, so their hand is free to use the camera and the controls if they're using a DSLR. But I don't need that because I can do everything I want with what I can get at here. And on the back of the camera, and there is in fact enough space to get my hand in there. So this is surprisingly usable. The flash adjustment is manual. You have to decide, and if it's too bright, turn it down a bit. But again, that's what I'm used to using anyway with the Venus Optics KX800 twin flash that I use with my other cameras. And you can quite soon get used to manual flash. So there we are. That's it. Here's a rig for taking close-ups and macros with a travel camera or some other similar zoom little point and shoot type camera, if you can find something to some tube like this which is the right size. The rest of it is just a matter of Velcro, basically. So, there we are. That's it. That's all for now. Goodbye.